The autumn rain drummed against the hospital window as Evelyn Harper watched her grandmother's chest rise and fall with labored breaths. Clara's once vibrant hazel eyes, so similar to Evelyn's own, had dulled to a tired gray over the past month. The surgery can't wait much longer, Dr. Martinez had said earlier, his clipboard heavy with bad news. $80,000. I'm sorry, Miss Harper. But without it, Evelyn's fingers traced the worn edges of her sketchbook, filled with dress designs that had never seen daylight beyond Cloverfield's thrift stores. 25 years old, and she was still sketching dreams that felt impossibly distant. "Don't you worry about me, sweetheart," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible above the heart monitor's steady beeping. "You've got your whole life ahead of you." But Evelyn couldn't let go. Clara had raised her since she was 8. After the car accident that took both her parents on a rainy night just like this one, the woman who taught her to sew, to dream, to believe that small-town girls could make it big, was slipping away. Evelyn was powerless to stop it. 3 days later, desperation drove her to a sleek office in Portland she never would have entered otherwise. The brass nameplate read "Midnight Matrimony, Discreet Arrangements." The receptionist, a woman with sharp red nails and sharper eyes, slid a thick contract across the mahogany desk. 1 year, she explained with clinical precision, completely. Legal marriage, minimal contact required. The gentleman in question needs a wife for inheritance purposes. You need money. It's quite straightforward. How much? Evelyn's voice cracked. $100,000 upon signing. Another 50 when the year concludes successfully. Evelyn's heart hammered. It was more than enough for Clara's surgery, with money left over for recovery care. Her grandmother could live. "The gentleman prefers anonymity," the woman continued. "You'll receive his contact information for coordination purposes only. No meetings, no personal involvement. Think of it as a very lucrative business arrangement." Meanwhile, 300 miles north in Seattle, James Carter signed an identical contract in his corner office overlooking Puget Sound. At 26, he commanded Carter Enterprises with the same ruthless efficiency his grandfather, Henry, had used to build the tech empire from nothing. But Henry's will contained one clause James couldn't negotiate around: marriage before his 27th birthday, or lose everything to a board of vultures waiting to tear apart his life's work. "This is insane," he muttered to his assistant, Nathan, but his signature was already drying on the page. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi. I'm your new wife. This feels weird to say, but I guess we should coordinate the legal stuff." James found himself almost smiling as he typed back, "Definitely weird. I'm James. You, Evelyn. So how do we do this without actually meeting?" "Proxy wedding. I'll handle the arrangements." 2 weeks later, Evelyn stood in a Portland courthouse wearing her grandmother's vintage dress. Watching a stranger sign papers on behalf of her mysterious husband, the ceremony lasted 12 minutes. She was officially Mrs. Bazaz Carter, married to a man whose face she'd never seen. The money hit her account the next morning. Clara's surgery was scheduled for that afternoon. "Where did this come from?" Clara asked weakly, as Evelyn helped her into the pre-op gown. "I got a job," Evelyn said, which wasn't entirely a lie. "A really good job." Yes. Her grandmother was wheeled into surgery. Evelyn's phone buzzed with another text from her husband. "Hope your day's going better than mine. Found out I have to fire half my design team." She typed back without thinking, "My grandmother's in surgery. I'm terrified." His response came immediately. "She'll be okay. You're stronger than you know." Something in those simple words made her chest tighten. This stranger, her husband in name only, had offered more comfort than anyone in Cloverfield ever had. But as Clara emerged from surgery stable and breathing on her own, Evelyn realized her problems were just beginning. The money was gone, spent on medical bills and Clara's recovery care. She needed a real job, and fast. The answer came in an email. 3 days later, Carter Enterprises was hiring design interns in Seattle. The salary wasn't much, but it was steady income in her field. She could sketch again, maybe even build the career she'd always dreamed of. She'd never noticed the company name matched her new husband's last name. After all, Carter was a common surname, and James had never mentioned what he did for work. as Evelyn packed her few belongings into a battered suitcase. Her phone lit up with another message from her mysterious spouse moving to a new city next week. "Nervous about starting over?" "Same here," she replied. "New job, new place. Feels like jumping off a cliff." Sometimes that's the only way to learn to fly. Neither of them realized they were about to land in the same building, on the same floor, in the same complicated mess that would change everything. The Carter Enterprises building pierced the Seattle skyline like a glass and steel monument to corporate power. Evelyn stood on the sidewalk, craning her neck to count the floors until they disappeared into the morning fog. Her floral dress, rescued from a Cloverfield thrift store and carefully mended the night before, felt like armor against the sea of dark suits flowing around her. Inside, the lobby echoed with the sharp click of designer heels and the low hum of important conversations. Evelyn clutched her portfolio tighter, its worn edges suddenly embarrassing under the harsh fluorescent lights. "You must be the charity case." The voice belonged to Megan Brooks, a woman who looked like she'd been sculpted from marble and dressed by angels with excellent taste and terrible personalities. Her smile was all teeth and no warmth. "I'm Evelyn Harper," she replied, extending her hand. "I'm here for the design internship." Megan's eyes traveled from Evelyn's carefully styled hair to her secondhand shoes, cataloging every flaw. How quaint. "Well, don't get too comfortable. Small-town girls usually don't last a week. In the real world—" Before Evelyn could respond, Megan had already turned away, her entourage of perfectly groomed assistants trailing behind like well-dressed sharks. The interview was brutal. 5 stone-faced executives fired questions designed to highlight everything. Evelyn lacked formal education, industry connections, experience with high-end clients. But when they asked about her designs, something shifted. Her voice steadied as she spoke about creating beauty from nothing, about understanding that fashion was really about making people feel confident and alive. In the observation room above, James Carter watched through one-way glass, his arms crossed. He wasn't supposed to be here. Intern hires were beneath his notice, but something about her application had caught his attention. Maybe it was the raw honesty of her cover letter, or the sketches that showed real talent despite their obvious amateur execution. He found himself leaning forward as she spoke, noting the passion that lit up her face, the way she gestured with her hands like she was painting her words in the air. There was something familiar about her spirit, though he couldn't place what. "We'll be in touch," the lead interviewer said dismissively, but James had already made his decision. "Hire her," he told Nathan after the panel filed out. "Junior level. Design team. Sir, her qualifications, she has something the others don't. Vision, raw talent. Men, sometimes that's worth more than a degree from Parsons." Nathan made a note, though his expression suggested he thought his boss was making a mistake. Downstairs, Evelyn slumped against the lobby wall, certain she'd blown her chance. Her phone buzzed with a text from her husband. Rough day at the office. Board meeting from hell. How's the job hunt? She typed back, just had the worst interview of my life. Pretty sure I embarrassed myself in front of half of corporate Seattle. Loss. You're going to find something amazing, I can feel it. His confidence in her, despite never having met her, made her chest warm. This strange marriage might be fake, but somehow her anonymous husband had become the most genuine relationship in her life. An hour later, she was staring at an email that made her read the same words 3 times. Congratulations. You've been accepted for the junior design position at Carter Enterprises. That evening, James sat in his penthouse apartment, Seattle glittering 40 floors below. His phone lit up with an excited message. "I got the job. I can't believe it. Starting Monday at some big tech company. I'm terrified and thrilled and probably going to throw up." Ace smiled, genuinely smiled, for the first time in weeks. "That's incredible. What company?" "Carter Enterprises, ever heard of it?" James stared at his phone, his whiskey glass frozen halfway to his lips. His wife, his secret anonymous wife, had just been hired to work at his company. The universe, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humor. He typed back after a long pause. "I've heard of it. You're going to do great." Over the weekend, they texted constantly. She told him about finding a tiny apartment in Capitol Hill, about her grandmother's recovery, about her fears of not belonging in the corporate world. He found himself sharing more than he intended. His frustration with board politics, his fear of losing everything his grandfather had built, the loneliness of being surrounded by people who only saw his money. "Do you ever wonder what your spouse is really like?" she asked on Sunday night. James stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Sometimes. Do you all the time? He seems different from what I expected." "Kinder, maybe she's different too," he wrote back. "Maybe they both are." Monday morning arrived with typical Seattle drizzle. James watched from his corner office as employees filtered into the building, and there she was, Evelyn Harper, his wife, walking through the lobby in a determined straight line, and her shoulders squared against whatever the day might bring. He could have gone down to introduce himself, could have ended the charade right then. Instead, he picked up his phone and texted First Day Nerves. Her response came back immediately, absolutely terrified. "Send help and possibly alcohol." "You've got this," he typed, watching her step into the elevator. "Just be yourself." As the elevator doors closed, James realized with startling clarity that he was in serious trouble. He was falling for his own wife, and she had no idea he existed. Megan Brooks had elevated workplace bullying to an art form. "Coffee run, small town," she announced on Evelyn's third day, sliding a crumpled 20 across the desk. "Make sure you get the order right this time. Mr. Davidson takes his latte with oat milk, not almond, although I suppose they don't teach the difference in Oregon farm schools." Her circle of perfectly manicured followers tittered like expensive wind chimes. Evelyn pocketed the money without a word, her jaw clenched so tight she was surprised her teeth didn't crack. Trouble in paradise? Her husband texted during her lunch break. "My supervisor is a nightmare. I think she's personally offended by my existence." Some people build themselves up by tearing others down. Don't let her steal your light. His words were exactly what she needed to hear. Somehow, this stranger knew her better than people she'd grown up with in Cloverfield. What Evelyn didn't know was that James had been watching. Not in a creepy way, but in the concerned way of a man realizing he was developing very real feelings for a woman who thought he was someone else entirely. He'd witnessed Megan's calculated cruelty, the way she assigned Evelyn the most menial tasks while taking credit for her design ideas in team meetings. It took every ounce of his self-control not to intervene directly. He was the CEO. He could end Megan's reign of terror with a single phone call. But that would raise questions he wasn't ready to answer. The breaking point came on Thursday afternoon. Evelyn had spent her lunch hour working on a design concept for the upcoming product launch, sketching in her worn notebook while eating a granola bar from the vending machine. The dress she'd imagined was elegant but accessible, something that could make any woman feel confident without breaking her budget. She'd left the notebook on her desk for just 5 minutes while she used the bathroom, and she returned. Megan was standing there with the notebook in her hands, her expression predatory. Well, moonlighting as a fashion designer. Megan's voice carried across the open office plan. Adorable. Though I have to say, these look like something my 10-year-old niece might doodle. She held up the sketches for everyone to see, her tone dripping with manufactured sympathy. I mean, the proportions are all wrong, and this color palette, yikes. But hey, everyone has to start somewhere, right? Evelyn's cheeks burned as conversations stopped and heads turned. She reached for her notebook, but Megan pulled it back with a laugh. "Oh, come on, don't be sensitive. I'm just trying to help. Maybe stick to coffee runs for now." That was when James appeared. He'd been in a client meeting on the 40th floor. When Nathan had discreetly texted him, "Situation developing on 15, you might want to handle this personally." James stepped off the elevator to find half the design team watching Megan humiliate his wife. His wife, who was standing there with her chin raised and her hands steady despite the obvious mortification in her eyes. "Is there a problem here?" His voice cut through the office chatter like a blade. The effect was immediate. Conversations stopped. People suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. Megan's confident smirk faltered. "Mr. Carter, I was just giving our intern some constructive feedback on her hobby sketches." James looked at Evelyn, really looked at her, for the first time since she'd started working there. Up close, her hazel eyes were even more striking than he'd noticed from his office window. There was strength in them, and hurt, and something that made his chest tighten. "May I see them?" It wasn't a request. Megan handed over the notebook like it had suddenly caught. Fired James flipped through the pages, his expression unreadable. The sketches were good. Better than good. They showed an understanding of line and movement that most of his senior designers lacked. More importantly, they showed heart. "These are remarkable," he said finally, his eyes meeting Evelyn's. Something electric passed between them, a recognition that neither could name. "Who authorized you to review Ms. Harper's personal work, Brooks?" Megan's face went pale. "I just thought you'd humiliate a colleague for your own entertainment. That's not the kind of thinking we value here." He handed the notebook back to Evelyn, their fingers brushing for just a moment. "Ms. Harper, I'd like to see you in my office now." The elevator ride to the top floor was the longest 2 minutes of Evelyn's life. She stood next to the CEO of the company, breathing in his expensive cologne and trying not to notice how perfectly his suit fit his shoulders. "You don't have to fire me," she said as the doors opened. "I know I shouldn't have been sketching." "During work hours?" James paused, his hand on the elevator door. "Who said anything about firing you?" His office was a study in controlled power. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Seattle. Awards and industry recognition covered one wall. The desk was clean except for a single photo of an elderly man with kind eyes. "Your grandfather?" Evelyn asked, nodding toward the picture. "Henry Carter. He built this company from nothing." James's voice softened. "He would have liked you. Because I'm scrappy and poor? Because you have integrity? Talent?" He gestured to her notebook. "These designs show real promise. Why are you working as an intern?" Evelyn laughed, but there was no humor in it, because real designers go to fashion school and have connections. I have a high school diploma and a dead-end town in my rearview mirror. Some of the best designers I know are self-taught. Raw talent can't be manufactured." He moved to stand by the window, his profile sharp against the gray Seattle sky. Evelyn found herself studying the line of his jaw, the way his dark hair caught the light. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of presence that made rooms rearrange themselves around him. "I have a proposition," he said suddenly. "We're launching a new product line next quarter. High-end tech accessories for young professionals. I need someone who understands both style and accessibility. Someone who isn't trapped by industry conventions." Evelyn's heart hammered. "You're offering me the job? I'm offering you a chance to prove yourself. Design 3 concepts. If they're good, you get promoted to junior designer and work directly with my team. If they're not," he shrugged. "Well, you're no worse off than you are now. Why?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. James turned back to her. And again she felt that electric recognition, like déjà vu made of lightning. "Because everyone deserves a chance to fly," he said quietly. The phrase hit her like a physical blow. Those exact words. Her husband had texted them to her just days ago, but that was impossible. James Carter was the CEO of a major corporation, not some stranger she'd married for money. The universe wasn't that cruel or that poetic. "Thank you," she managed. "I won't let you down." As she headed for the door, he called her name, Evelyn. She turned back. "Don't let Megan or anyone else make you feel small. You belong here." That evening, she curled up in her tiny apartment with her sketchbook and her phone. Her husband's message was waiting, "How was your day?" "Still dealing with the office, which, actually, the CEO gave me a huge opportunity. I can't believe it." Amazing, he sounds like a smart man. "Yeah," she typed back, remembering James Carter's intense gaze, the way he'd said her name like it meant something. He really is. Across town, James stared at his phone screen, his heart racing. He was in love with his wife and she was falling. For him too. The only problem was, she thought they were 2 different people. The web he'd woven was getting more tangled by the day, and he had no idea how to escape it without losing everything that mattered. The designs poured out of Evelyn like water through a broken dam. She worked through the weekend, Her tiny apartment transformed into a creative hurricane of fabric swatches, sketches, and empty coffee cups. By Monday morning, she had 3 concepts that made her pulse race with possibility, a line of tech accessories that were both functional and beautiful, designed for people who refused to choose between style and practicality. Meanwhile, James spent the weekend in his penthouse, texting his wife about everything except the fact that he was her boss. She told him about her big break, about staying up until 3 a.m. perfecting her designs. He found himself falling deeper with every message, charmed by her excitement, her determination, the way she saw possibility where others saw obstacles. "Think I'm falling for my boss?" she texted Sunday night. And James nearly dropped his phone. His hands shook as he typed back. "That's complicated. What's he like? Brilliant, intimidating, kind when he doesn't think anyone's watching. I keep catching him looking at me like he's trying to solve a puzzle." James stared at the message until his eyes burned. She was falling for him, the real him, not just the anonymous husband who texted her complaints about board meetings, but the man who'd recognized her talent when everyone else saw only a small-town girl out of her depth. "Maybe he's looking at you like that because he's falling too," he typed. "Impossible. I'm nobody special." "You're wrong about that." Monday's presentation was set for 2 p.m. in the main conference room. Evelyn arrived an hour early, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd worn her best dress, a navy blue sheath she'd altered herself to fit perfectly. Her hair was pulled back in a simple chignon. She'd splurged on new heels that made her feel taller, stronger. The conference room gradually filled with senior designers, marketing executives, and department heads. Megan Brooks sat in the back, her expression promising violence. James entered last, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit that made Evelyn forget how to breathe properly. "Ms. Harper," he said formally, though his eyes held warmth. "Whenever you're ready." Evelyn stood, her presentation boards arranged behind her like soldiers ready for battle. She'd practiced this speech 100 times in her mirror, but facing a room full of industry professionals made her throat dry. "Fashion and technology have always had a complicated relationship," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're told we have to choose between function and beauty, between practical and stylish. But what if we didn't?" She unveiled her first concept, a laptop bag that looked like a haute couture purse with hidden compartments for cables and devices. Oh, the room was silent. But she caught James nodding, almost imperceptibly. Her second design was even bolder, a smartwatch band that doubled as a bracelet, elegant enough for evening wear, but functional enough for marathon runners. The marketing team leaned forward, interested despite themselves. But it was her third concept that made the room inhale collectively. A phone case that was actually a small clutch purse, sleek enough for black tie events, but protective enough for adventure sports. She'd even designed matching earbuds that looked like designer jewelry. The target demographic isn't choosing between their phone and their style, Evelyn concluded. They want both. They deserve both. The silence stretched like a held breath. Then James started clapping, slow and deliberate, and the rest of the room followed suit. "Questions?" he asked the group. "The production costs would be astronomical," Megan interjected, her voice sharp. "And the market research doesn't support the market research is irrelevant," James cut her off smoothly. "We're not following trends. We're setting them." I turned to Evelyn. "What would you need to develop prototypes?" The next hour passed in a blur of budget discussions and timeline negotiations. Evelyn found herself promoted to lead designer on the project, with her own team and a development budget that made her dizzy. As the meeting dispersed, James caught her arm gently. "Walk with me." They ended up on the building's sky garden, a rooftop oasis that most employees didn't even know existed. The Seattle skyline stretched out below them, the late afternoon sun painting everything golden. "I have a confession," James said, his hands in his pockets. "I've been watching you since your first day." Evelyn's pulse quickened. "Watching me? You're different from everyone else here. See people, not just profit margins. You helped our janitor, Mr. Dawson, pick up his papers when everyone else walks past him like he's invisible. He's a nice man. He tells great stories about old Seattle. Most executives here don't even know his name. James turned to face her fully. You're kind in a world that rewards cruelty. It's rare. The intensity in his voice made something flutter in Evelyn's chest. Mr. Carter, James? Please. James. His name felt intimate on her lips. I need to tell you something, too. I'm married. The words hit him like a physical blow, even though he knew they were coming. Happily.
Nice.
Complicated. She looked out at the city, her expression thoughtful. We've never actually met. It's a business arrangement. But lately she trailed off, shaking her head. This is crazy. What's crazy? I'm married to a stranger I've never seen, but I text him every day. He knows me better than people I grew up with. And now I'm standing here with my boss, feeling things I shouldn't feel. James stepped closer, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. What kind of things? Like I want you to kiss me, she whispered. Like I've been waiting my whole life for someone to look at me the way you do, Evelyn. No, it's wrong. I know I'm married and you're my boss, and this is all kinds of inappropriate, but he kissed her. Soft and desperate and perfect, like coming home to a place she'd never been. His hands cupped her face, and she melted into him, her heart racing against his chest. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, James rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he said quietly. I know. Your husband will never know. This is between us. James closed his eyes, guilt and desire warring in his chest. She was his wife, had been his wife for months, but she didn't know. I think she thought she was betraying a stranger for him, when in reality, I should go, he said, stepping back. This is moving too fast. Hurt flashed across her features. Of course, you're right. Sorry, I just don't apologize. You did nothing wrong. He straightened. His tie, his CEO mask sliding back into place. I'll see you tomorrow, Ms. Harper. The formality was like a slap. Evelyn nodded, wrapping her arms around herself as he walked away. That evening, she sat in her apartment, staring at her phone. Her husband's message glowed on the screen. How did the presentation go? Better than I dreamed, she typed back. I got promoted. Lead designer on a major project. That's incredible. I'm so proud of you. I also did something terrible. There was a long pause before his response wanted to talk about it. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. How could she explain that she was falling for her boss while married? To someone else? How could she confess that she'd kissed James Carter and wanted to do it again? I think I'm falling in love with the wrong person, she typed finally. Across town. James stared at his phone, his heart breaking. Maybe, he wrote back, there's no such thing as the wrong person. Maybe there's just wrong timing. Do you really believe that? I want to. That night, both of them lay awake in their separate beds, thinking about the same kiss, the same impossible situation, the same heart-wrenching truth they were falling in love with each other in two different ways, and neither knew how the story could possibly end well. 3 weeks later, Evelyn was drowning in success. Her prototype designs had generated buzz throughout the tech industry, pre-orders already exceeding projections by 300%. Fashion Week had called. Tech blogs were hailing her as the fresh-voiced design has been waiting for. It should have been the happiest time of her life. Instead, she felt like she was being torn in half. Her feelings for James had only intensified since their kiss on the Sky Garden. He'd been professional but distant, and she caught him watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. Meanwhile, her connection with her anonymous husband had deepened into something that felt dangerously like love. Their nightly conversations had become the anchor of her days. I think I'm in love with 2 different men, she confessed to him one Thursday evening. How pathetic is that? Maybe you're in love with 2 different versions of the same person, came his cryptic reply. What's that supposed to mean? Sometimes we wear masks. Sometimes the person we are in one situation is completely different from who we are in another. Evelyn stared at the message, something nagging at the edge of her consciousness. There was something about the way her husband phrased things, the vocabulary he used, that reminded her of someone. The revelation came on Friday morning in the most mundane way possible. James was in his office, reviewing quarterly reports, when his phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn. My husband says the weirdest things sometimes. Yesterday, he told me that everyone deserves a chance to fly, Who talks like that? James's blood turned to ice. Those were the exact words he'd said to her in his office. The exact words he'd texted her days earlier as her husband. His hands shook. As he typed back, "Maybe he's more poetic than you think. Maybe. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if we actually met. What if we have nothing in common? What if the connection we have through text disappears in person? What if it doesn't?" He replied, his heart hammering. "What if it's even stronger?" Down on the 15th floor, Evelyn was reading his response when Megan Brooks appeared at her desk, her face twisted with barely contained rage. "Enjoying your little fairy tale?" Megan hissed, her voice low enough that others wouldn't hear. "Don't! Think I don't know what's going on. I don't know what you mean, please." The CEO doesn't personally champion nobodies unless he's getting something in return. "How far did you have to go to get this promotion? Or should I ask how low?" Evelyn stood slowly, her chair rolling back. "Excuse me, did you think no one would notice? The private meetings, the way he looks at you? You're nothing but a small-town gold digger who that's enough?" James's voice cut through the office like a blade. He stood behind Megan, his expression thunderous. Evelyn had never seen him truly angry before, and the sight was both terrifying and magnificent. "Mr. Carter, you were just cleaning out your desk." His voice was deadly quiet. "Security will escort you out. Your termination paperwork will be ready in an hour. You can't fire me over this." "I can and I will." Ms. Harper earned her position through talent and hard work. The fact that you can't recognize that says everything about why you'll never succeed in this industry. Megan's face went white, then red. "This isn't over," she spat, grabbing her purse. "People will hear about this. I'm counting on it," James replied smoothly. "It'll save me the trouble of ruining your reputation personally." The security led a shrieking Megan away. The office erupted in whispered conversations. James turned to Evelyn, his mask slipping back into place. "My office. Now." The elevator ride was silent, tension crackling between them like electricity. Once his office door closed, James's careful control finally cracked. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." He moved closer, his eyes intense. "No one talks to you like that. No one." Her voice was soft, uncertain. "I can't do this anymore." The words burst out of him like a dam breaking. "I can't pretend I don't." He stopped, running his hands through his hair. "This is impossible." "What is? You me?" "This whole situation." He turned to face the window, his shoulders rigid. "You're married?" "It's not real," she said quietly. "The marriage, it's just a business arrangement. We've never even met, but you have feelings for him." "I thought I did." "But how can you love someone you've never seen? Someone who might not even be who he claims to be?" She stepped closer, her reflection joining his in the glass. "What I feel for you is real. It's terrifying and wonderful and real." James closed his eyes, the weight of his deception crushing him. "Evelyn, there's something I need to tell you."
"What? Before he could?"
Answer, his phone rang. Nathan's voice came through the speaker. "Sir, your wife's lawyers are on line 1. Something about finalizing the divorce papers early." Evelyn's face went pale.
"Your wife?"
James closed his eyes, the moment of truth crashing over him like a wave. "Evelyn, please let me explain. You're married." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You kissed me. You made me feel like I was betraying my own husband, and you're married. It's not what you think. What I think is that I'm an idiot." She backed toward the door, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "What I think is that I let myself believe that someone like you could actually care about someone like me." "Evelyn, wait." But she was already gone. The door slamming behind her with a finality that echoed through his chest. James sank into his chair, his head in his hands. Through the intercom, Nathan's voice was patient but insistent. "Sir, the lawyers are still holding." "Tell them," James paused, his mind racing. "Tell them there's been a change of plans." Evelyn fled to the Sky Garden, her refuge, where she could fall apart in private. Her phone buzzed with a text from her husband. "Something wrong? You seem upset?" Her fingers shook as she typed, "How do you know when someone is upset through text?" "The same way I know you're crying right now, because I know you." She stared at the message, that nagging feeling returning stronger than ever. "How possibly know I'm crying?" There was a long pause. Then because I'm watching you. Evelyn's blood turned to ice. She spun around, scanning the empty garden, but saw no one. That's not funny. Turn around. Her heart hammered as she turned toward the building. There, in the floor-to-ceiling window of the top floor, stood a figure. Even from this distance, she could see it was a man in a dark suit. Her phone buzzed again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. With trembling fingers, she typed James. Yes, the world tilted sideways. Evelyn sank onto a bench, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing, what she was realizing. You're my husband, she texted, though she could see him clearly now, could see him holding his phone. Yes, the marriage isn't fake. The contract was real. The feelings became real too. Evelyn's chest felt tight, like she couldn't get enough air. Everything made sense now. His protectiveness, the way he looked at her, the identical phrasing in their conversations. The man she'd fallen in love with through texts, and the man she'd fallen in love with in person, were the same person. Come up here, he texted. Please. Let me explain everything. Her hand shook as she typed, I don't know if I can trust you. I know, but I love you. Both versions of you. The woman who texts me about her dreams and fears, and the woman who stands up to boardrooms full of executives. They're the same person. And I love all of you. Evelyn closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. When she opened them, James was no longer at the window. A moment later, the garden door opened and he stepped outside. Up close, she could see the vulnerability. In his eyes, the way his hands shook almost as much as hers. I wanted to tell you, he said quietly. Every day I wanted to tell you, why didn't you? Because I was terrified. He sat beside her on the bench, careful not to touch her. I was terrified that you'd think it was all manipulation, that you'd think I hired you because you were my wife, not because you're brilliant. Didn't you know? His voice was fierce. I made the decision to hire you before I knew who you were. I saw your portfolio, I watched your interview, and I knew you were exactly what this company needed. Finding out you were my wife was. Like the universe playing the cruelest joke imaginable. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. You let me think I was betraying my marriage. I know. It was selfish and wrong, and I'm sorry. You let me fall in love with you twice. I fell in love with you twice too. He finally looked at her, his eyes desperate. The woman who married me sight unseen to save her grandmother. It's a designer who sees beauty where others see obstacles. The person who texts me at midnight about her fears and dreams are all the same person, and I love every part of you. This is insane, she whispered. I know. We're married. For about 6 more months, according to the contract. Less and less what? James pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. Unless we make it real, no contracts, no business arrangements, just us choosing each other because we want to. Evelyn stared at the paper. It was a copy of their marriage certificate, but this one had been modified, where the original had listed terms and conditions. This one simply said, because love found a way. You had this made this morning, before everything fell apart. He set it on the bench between them. Evelyn Harper Carter, would you marry me again? For real this time? She looked at him, really looked at him. The CEO who'd recognized her talent when everyone else saw failure. The mysterious husband who'd become her best friend through late-night texts. The man who'd kissed her like she was precious, who'd defended her like she was worth defending. Realize this is the strangest love story in history. I'm counting on it. Evelyn picked up the certificate, her heart racing. What happens now? Now we figure it out together. All of it. The company, the marriage, the fact that my wife is the most talented designer I've ever met and is about to revolutionize our entire industry. And if it doesn't work, it will. His voice was certain, absolute. We've already proven we're perfect. For each other, we just did it backward. Evelyn laughed, surprising herself. Only we would fall in love through fake marriage and corporate espionage. I prefer to think of it as fate, with a sense of humor. She turned to face him fully, her decision crystallizing. James Carter, I already married you once for money. This time, I'm marrying you for love. Is that a yes? Instead of answering, she kissed him. It was different from their first kiss, deeper and more certain, filled with the promise of everything they could build together. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, James rested his forehead against hers. So what do we tell people? Evelyn asked. How we met through work, fell in love, and decided? To make it official, that's not entirely a lie. The best stories never are. 6 months later, Evelyn stood in the same Portland courthouse where she'd first become Mrs. Carter. But this time she wore a dress of her own design, and James stood beside her instead of a proxy. Clara sat in the front row, healthy and beaming, next to Henry Carter's portrait, which James had insisted on bringing as they exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Evelyn thought about the desperate young woman who'd signed a marriage contract to save her grandmother's life. She could never have imagined it would lead to this. A love story that began with deception and bloomed into the most honest thing she'd ever experienced. Do you take this woman to be your wife? The judge asked. I do, James said, his eyes never leaving hers. Again. And do you take this man to be your husband? I do, Evelyn replied. For real this time. When they kissed, it tasted like coming home and starting an adventure all at once. Later, at their reception in the Sky Garden of Carter Enterprises, surrounded by friends and colleagues who still didn't know the whole truth, James pulled Evelyn aside. Any regrets? He asked. She looked around at their life, the company where she was now chief creative officer, the city that had become home, the man who'd loved her in every way possible before she even knew his face. Just one, she said. His face fell. What? I wish I'd known sooner that the best love stories start with the most impossible circumstances. James laughed, spinning her around until she squealed with delight. Lucky for us, he said. We've got the rest of our lives to make up for lost time. As the Seattle skyline glittered around them and their guests celebrated below, Evelyn realized that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come disguised as disasters. Sometimes fate wears the mask of desperation. Sometimes love finds you when you're not even looking for it, in the last place you'd ever think to search. Sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to fall in love with the same person twice. Asterisk the end, asterisk asterisk like this video. If the story touched your heart, subscribe for more emotional tales, and share with someone who believes in the power of true love. And let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.